And welcome to my 13 Horrifically Silly Days of Halloween blog series. Today I have with me Lisa Ovies and Kevin Mosley of Puppet Killer. Kevin and Lisa, please, one at a time, introduce yourselves if you would and give us a little background on yourselves. Kevin first, if you don't mind.
Sure. I'm Kevin Mosley. Wrote Puppet Killer along with Lisa. And then also I did Savage Island way back in 2004. That was my first sort of indie film that I did with a director by the name of Jeffrey Lando. And then after that, we did a movie called Suspension, which came out in 2014, I believe now. And that was also done with Jeffrey. And that's when I first met Lisa, actually. She came on board as our casting director, and then she also has a role at the beginning of the film. So that's where we sort of first met. And then here we are. So, and I've been screenwriting for a long time. It's been my passion. Horror movies is my thing. I grew up watching them. So yeah, so it's totally my wheelhouse, and I'm happy to be here and actually, you know, contribute to the genre that I love. So.
Awesome. Lisa, go ahead.
Okay, how do you follow that? He's amazing. I'm just so lucky to know him and work with him. But my name is Lisa Ovies. The real Coles note of Lisa, I've always wanted to be a filmmaker, but I didn't really come out of the closet as a filmmaker for quite a while. I didn't really have the confidence in myself to do it. Started as an actor, very quickly realized I wasn't going to get the roles I wanted. So I started a production company. And then produced for quite a while. I was a casting director, did different areas in film, and then eventually started directing. And now I direct, I produce, and I own an acting school, all of which I love so much. And currently, yes, we've got Puppet Killer, who's coming out soon, which me and Kevin did together, which I'm so proud of. And we're doing a couple other cool things too. So that's me in a nutshell.
Awesome. And we were just talking off camera, you and me, Lisa, about name pronunciation, and I managed to get your last name wrong. Sorry about that.
You know what, Reagan? Did I do it?
You did.
I panicked. And then I was like, if I do it wrong, it's going to seem like I'm doing it on purpose. No one says my last name right.
Okay.
It's fine. It's
OVAs.
Yeah, OVAs. No one does. It's okay. I'm the whitest Mexican you'll ever meet. And so I'm incredibly proud to be a Latinx representation in horror. But yeah, it's all good. That's my last name, Ovies. I answer to Ovies. I've answered to it for 41 years. So don't you worry.
And you've answered to other things too.
So true.
Anyway, all right.
Alrighty. Actually, Lisa, I didn't, in the list of questions that I sent to you guys that we'll go through, I didn't really ask you about your acting school. So I just wanted to give you a chance to talk a little bit about that, if you don't mind, before we dive in with specific film projects and stuff.
Sure, thanks. I won't, I'll go quick. It's called Rogue Studios. I'm really proud of it. I ran someone else's company, another acting school, for 4 years. And I ended up increasing their profits by 1,000%. And not because I'm great at business, I'm good at business, but because I love film, and I loved making it a member of the film community versus like running it like an institution. But I also learned that there was a lot of things in it that you know, I kept saying, if I was in charge, I would do it different. I would do it a little bit, and nothing that they did was wrong. The way that I say it is, they're like Walmart. There's nothing wrong with Walmart. And they serve a great population, and they can make it a bit more affordable and accessible. But I wanted to do something a little more specialized and a little bit more personable. I'm a very passionate person. I wanted to connect with each parent. And that was one of the things I didn't like about growing it so big. I wanted, you know, parents to have me on their speed dial, right? So I started Rogue Studios, which it's a children's acting school. We launched in 2017. I love it. I now teach adults. I've taught adults as far as improv goes. For 8 years. I think I've been professionally an improv artist for almost 10. I've been teaching forever. And it was just the amalgamation of everything I love that I wanted to give people that I wish I'd have known then. And a little bit of an area, because we started with children, and I originally ran a children's acting school, but I have so much experience in full-time adult programs for acting. There was so much that was missing. that adults are taught everything. They're taught the business, all of these other aspects, and children were taught on camera audition, but asked to be professionals on set. And I started noticing we weren't serving them in the same way. And I also didn't want a bunch of, shitheads.
Okay.
So I didn't want a bunch of kids that wanted to be famous or wanted to be brats on set or think they were better than anyone else. So I also started a program that you can't sign up online. I interview the parents, I interview kids. I make sure that everyone's there for the right reasons, and that if my name is on their resume, it means something.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm a horrible human, and I took all my friends, all these successful people in film, and I just was like, do you want to teach at my school? So they get really cool opportunities. Alex Ponovic just showed up the other day. He's been in Atlanta filming, and he got to chat with them and answer questions about mocap and what it was like working with Andy Serkis and all sorts of stuff. So I could talk about it forever because I'm really passionate, but that's what I do. And I'm really grateful that that's been something I could incorporate into my life along with making film.
Very cool. Thank you for that. And now we will dive into the projects. I would like you, I'll start with Kevin, to tell me about, and this is possibly linked up anyway, your most recent film projects, whether that's something that's out or up and coming. Anything that you're able to tell me, go ahead.
Sure. I mean, here's the thing. Making movies is like, it's almost like I talk about, like, amazing me movies get made. It's almost like all the planets have to be lined up, all that stuff, right? But it all hinges on this, in my world, it all hinges on the script, all that kind of stuff, right? So, so yes, we do have a very exciting project coming up. It's called The Vineyard. And it's based on an original script actually written by a writer in Toronto, Lisa. Tony Bullis, who wrote a draft, who was working on it for quite a while, actually. So anyways, the script ultimately landed onto my lap with Lisa attached to direct. And then we're working with Maritama Carlson, the producer. So I just actually finished the draft a couple days ago, the second draft. So so we're pretty excited about it. It's sort of about a family that comes to this old estate winery for a wedding. And there's a demon in the vineyard. And of course, all hell breaks loose. So, but what's really cool about this one is that it's really got a really great sort of family drama happening in the background with all the, the siblings and the mom and all that kind of stuff. So it was really a great opportunity to sort of write a creature feature slasher horror film with this really great family story behind it. And that's something that Tony, in his draft had, and I think that's something that Lisa really bit into. So that was something that interested both of us. I love horror, I love slasher films, all that kind of stuff, but I also really love the films that really get into the emotional nitty-gritty of the characters. And in this one, I think we really care about the characters, and that's important in this type, these kind of films. So I got to write horror and also write a family drama and sort of mesh them together. So we're really excited about it. It's really, really fun. So I spent about the last 3 months working on the script. So it's very exciting. So, and I'm excited to have, Lisa's she's gonna kick ass with it. So yeah.
So now it's your turn, Lisa. Tell us a little bit about your end in the vineyard and any other film projects upcoming for you or recent. Besides Puppet.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about Puppet Killer in a bit, so that's coming up.
Yep.
I directed in quarantine or isolation a segment of a horror anthology called Witches Midnight, which was, that was a challenge. It was fully remotely directed, so I had actors in LA and Toronto and Vancouver with my DP. At one point, I think we were remote controlling up to 15 devices. It was unbelievable. Our actors were their own camera ops while also connecting devices that could remote transfer what they were doing to my Zoom call. It was nuts. It was nuts. And we did it. And I'm so proud of it. Beverly Elliott, who is in Puppet Killer, who I'm obsessed with, is also in Witches Midnight. We had our world premiere at Panic Fest last month. I'm a huge fan of Panic Fest. And it just had something special to me. We were just talking about this before we came on, but Panic Fest was the last festival that me and Kevin attended in person, but it was also the last festival pretty much that Puppet Killer played. I think we had to pull out of 20 to 30 festivals, which no film even gets the chance to play that many, let alone has to pull out of them. That was a rough one, but there was maybe 2 over the year that were able to do it safely in person, and one that I fought for that played us online, and that was because their trophies were so cool. I just was like, what are the chances we might get one? No, they were just a great festival. But anyway, that meant something to me to fight to have our world premiere be at Panic Fest. It was like a nice little full circle for me. So that's out. That's doing the festival circuit right now. I'm really proud of it. We've got some practical effects in that. And my thing is sort of comedy as well. So there's, again, a beautiful relationship in there. Alec Gillis is in it. Alec Gillis is not an actor, although he's fantastic. He's better known as one of the Academy Award-winning owners of Amalgamated Dynamics Incorporated with Tom Woodruff Jr. They do Predator and It and Aliens, and they're unbelievable. They do a lot of animatronic and puppeteered, just fantastic practical effects. I'm such a fan. I'm obsessed with that stuff. And I met Alec years ago. I was a guest at a horror convention with him in 2016. And we just were like the same humans. We've been friends forever, but I'm a fan. And I somehow managed to get him to be one of my leads, and he does such a great job. And I feel so honored. So that's coming out. And then The Vineyard, which Kevin talked about. I have a couple projects that I'm in development and or in pitch phases with studios with. So fingers crossed. But like Kevin said, film's interesting. So you put your whole soul in it and you hope something happens. But The Vineyard is a beautiful story that is so character driven and everything we love that I don't want to give too much away. There's a beautiful aesthetic to it. There's some great, I don't know what I actually don't know what I'm allowed to say, but I love this story. I love what we could pull off with it. I love the drafts that Tony had. I've been looking at this film for a few years in different capacities. And I love that we were able to bring, and Tony was sort of the one that just said, okay, I've brought it where I can right now. He had other places to go with his energy, but we didn't want to let this script go. So it was really fun being able to pitch Kevin and saying, you know, I mean, a lot of people, and I think you even brought up maybe talking with Kevin, so many people know Kevin and I as a team. So it just was really cool to be able to be like, well, obviously Kevin, because I want to bring him on the next adventure, and he's so good that I just knew he would elevate it. And I'm gonna shut up, but like it's just been so much fun working with him again to create and watch what his beautiful brain does.
Well, that's the thing we were talking about. Like, you know, we were supposed to actually do a film, I think last summer, like that I wrote based on another existing script called The Mall, which I'd still want to get going at some point, but you know, shit happens, and you know, things can just, you know, it's like throwing spaghetti against the wall. Some will stick, some won't. So you know, it's not like we haven't been trying to, you know, develop material and all that kind of stuff. So you know, The Mall hopefully is coming at some point, but The Vineyard now is sort of our, you know, going to be our focus coming up, like that. So yeah.
And as people in the industry know, and you have been more than alluding to, even the projects that do stick, it sometimes takes a zillion years to put it all together and finally get it going, whether you're talking about a pre-production, production, or post-production phase. Maybe all three take forever. Yeah.
It took us like 10 years to finally get Suspension made, you know, the one before Puppet Killer. And, you know, it was with a producer for 10 years, you know, actually several producers over the years that just couldn't seem to sort of, you know, finally get it made. So, you know, so that was like a 10-year waiting period to try to get that one made.
And I want to say too, those are experienced people. Like the director he worked with has made, I don't even know how many feature films.
13.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think that's important for newer filmmakers to hear the reality. You know, I think it's a real misrepresentation when people go, oh, Puppet Killer was Lisa's first film. And it won shit, guys. It won a lot. Yeah. That's a misrepresentation. I've been in film for almost 15 years. I've made a heck of lot of films as an actor, as a casting director, as a volunteer, as a producer. You know, Kevin's written forever. And then it still took us 5 years. From, you know, 6 if we talk the year that I created it, and then met Kevin, and then, you know, so I think it's important to know I think I heard a really great quote the other day that was, there's two really big miracles in film. One is that you made a film, and the other is that it's good. And it's okay if you only hit one. I think no matter what, you made a film, good for you.
Yeah.
And it's okay if it's not great, because the next one will hopefully be a bit better, So I think, I want people to know the reality, the behind. The behind. Otherwise they would give up, because they'd be like, well, I didn't do that. We didn't.
Same actually goes for writing. Like right now, I'm writing novels, children's novels and stuff like that, and adults and stuff. And one particular novel series that I have finally found a publisher. But
Nice.
thank you. Is a nice small indie press in Hamilton, but it took years and years and years and years of looking around, and I'm still redrafting the shit out of it. And it's so very similar, I'd say, across the arts, that it just takes a long time. Often it's very rare that something comes together quickly.
We're not all Eddie Furlong. I say that because I was obsessed with him in like the 90s for T2, and I don't even know if it's a true story, but the rumor back then that he was discovered walking out of a Boys and Girls Club, and like I wanted to be a fucking actress then, and so I started hanging around the Boys and Girls Club. Shared that before.
I know, right thing. I remember years ago when I was writing, first started writing scripts. I wrote my first feature when I was, I think, 17. It was a serial killer script. I had no idea how to write a movie. I just wrote it. And then, I was like making, trips down to LA, with my scripts in my hand and knocking on doors and leaving scripts at people's offices and going, hey, do you want to read my screenplay? I did that for several years, and, just kept. And the thing about writers too is a lot of writers don't want to let people read their stuff. And I'm like, dude, no, you got to let people read your shit. Like, I'll let people read whatever. I mean, I don't care. It's part of the learning process. So, so it's, so like Lisa was saying, I've been at this for, God, like decades now, really. So I used to work as an art director and set decorator years ago for about 5 years on indie films and music videos. I still do a little bit of production design here and there. So no, it can take forever. I mean, Savage Island, my first film, took us, I think, 4 years to finish. So.
And stuff like that does not surprise me at all.
It doesn't happen overnight.
But that's just how it goes. But now I want to dive into Puppet Killer full on. Okay, so we have talked about it. We talked about it at Bits 2019. But so there's going to be some repetition here, but so what? I just wanted to tell me what it's about. I know what it's about. I've seen it, but tell the viewers what it's about, basically, and how, like, its horror movie influences, the horror tropes that it tackles and turns on its head in many cases, and all that good stuff. Please, Lisa, go.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
We used to be so good at this because we did interviews all the time. Puppet Killer, we've said this so many times, and I think it's true. It's me and Kevin's love letter to old school horror. It's, and I use this in quotation, the typical cabin in the woods story, but it's not, and it's a story about a gentleman named Jamie and his mother. And his mother passes away, and she leaves with him this beautiful puppet named Simon. And the mother was obsessed with horror films. And so the story really comes up from his relationship with horror, and flash to 10 years after his stepmother goes missing and some things might be going wrong. And he's left this beautiful puppet in this cabin in the woods. For no right reason, he decides to go back with his high school friends, put in quotations, and things go badly. And that's the best quick way I can say it. But it's so fun, and I actually would probably enjoy watching. And I want to say this, I've made a lot of bad films. You don't always love watching them. This one I still enjoy watching. And the throwbacks are like, it's crazy. It's Nightmare on Elm Street. It's everything you expect it to be. Friday the 13th, it's Halloween.
Yeah.
It's, there's Evil Dead, and that's, me and Kevin collectively. And I think and I'm going to try and answer this as quick as possible. The tropes, It's everything you expect to make fun of without actually making fun of it, but paying homage to it is the way that I think we found the success that we did with it. Is we don't nod to the camera, we don't wink to the camera, we don't go scary movie, we go scream. And that was the big difference for me as a director. And yes, we flip the tropes around, and the only people who stumble in the woods are the men, and the blonde is intelligent, empowered, the sexual woman is the boss. My dumb blonde is actually a man. And that was fun. And I think for Kevin and I, that was just fun. You know, we're both of groups that don't always get to be the winners in films. And so we got to play with some fun stuff there. But the real thing, if someone hasn't seen it, it's not campy. It's a real beautifully delivered story with great, unbelievable acting that really does pay homage to those horrors. And then the on-screen practical kills that were, you know, so important for me. To not CG, I didn't care what our budget was, and I needed it to be done properly, but we weren't going to move the camera. Kevin knows this. I was just reading our new script, and there was like this kill, and I'm like, oh no, the camera, no, I need to see it. Then about 5 or 6 pages later, I was like, there it is. Okay, I'm back in. Kevin, do you want to add to that though? I know you, I'm sure.
Puppet Killer. I mean, Lisa had the concept. Do you want to talk about sort of the concept, Lisa, where the concept came from and all that?
Oh, the concept was, I still don't know. Like, I know the story I tell everyone, but it doesn't feel real to me because I don't know where the fuck I came up with it. You can bleep out those things. I'm sorry. But really quickly, you know, I know that I was doing a movie called Bedbugs, a Musical Love Story, and I was also the casting director on Suspension. So that specifically, because there's so much terror and horror in that film, was emotionally exhausting because you're with these beautiful actresses giving their all every day and dying. And my reader was Lee Majou, and he's amazing. He's the voice of Simon, and he plays Curtis, one of our leads. And I went home that night and was just kind of like, I was thinking of all these puppets in this beautiful cheery musical, which isn't my jam. Very proud we made this film, and Suspension. And then all of a sudden it was born, and it was originally satirical. It was a short, and it was more self-serving. I'd made everyone else's products, and I was like, what about me? What if there was a killer obsessed with horror films? What if every time he killed, he did it in homage to a horror film he loved? And then that quickly morphed from something that was going to be a joke to something that was serious to very quickly to a feature. And then, you know, I was so lucky to be in Phoenix at the Phoenix Comic-Con with our movie. How cool is that? And we were driving to the Grand Canyon one day, and I was pitching it to an actor who's in Suspension, who's in Puppet Killer, and Kevin heard it. And it was one of those moments that was meant to be, because he made
I was driving, and I heard Lisa and Sage talking in the back seat about this crazy idea of this pink puppet on a killing spree at a cabin in the woods who is addicted to horror movies. And when I heard it, I was just like, oh no. Lisa's like, Kevin, do you want to write this? I'm like, hell yeah, let's meet when we get back to Vancouver.
And how lucky am I? Because I know that there's good writers out there. I don't want to put them down, but no one, in my opinion, could have made it the way Kevin did, or the way we did together, and the way that we work together, and that we get excited and we love the same things. And so it was a beautiful gift for me to be able to give it away, because I didn't know at the time if I was going to write it. I was in the middle of writing it, and Kevin did a great thing. He said, I've heard all your ideas. I get it. I don't want to read anything you've written. And I was like, great, because I've probably written shit. So
I think I said all I need to know is a pink puppet, a cabin in the woods, and a bunch of teenagers.
Yeah.
I mean, great. You know, here's the thing, like, you know, I've been watching horror movies since I was a kid, since the 70s. You know, I've been watching them since the early 70s. You know, so, and Lisa's, you know, she's such a horror junkie as like I am. She's, you know, so knowledgeable about the genre. So, you know, it just made like, it was like a horror movie match made in heaven, really. I mean, because of our backgrounds. I mean, I live, breathe in horror films. I mean, look at my room. I mean, I'm surrounded by it. You know, I love all of that stuff. So it was natural for me to write it, you know, and it was almost like second nature. So.
And I want to say too, because I don't know what every other writing experience is like, there was some anxiety there to know it so well in my brain. Maybe not every beat, but I knew, you know, I'd lived in this story for months and months and months. And to just give it away to someone and to give my baby and to go like,
Yeah.
what is that process going to be like? I had never co-written anything. I'd written things that had been produced and made before and stuff, but I'd certainly never done this. And I think it was quite unique. I could be wrong. I'm open to being wrong. How well we work together, how
Oh
we
no,
get
it was
excited about
great.
the same things.
Yeah.
And it's always been something special. And then to go back to the vineyard now, and something that we actually were just talking about the other day, it was so cool because we're doing it again and be like, that wasn't a fluke. We work great together. And he's coming up with ideas and I'm like, but what about if we do this? And it's okay if you don't take it. And the next time he calls, he's like, no, that worked. And here's what it did. And I'm like, oh, that's so great. Like, we are so lucky to love what we love and to respect each other so much. It just, I don't know. I think we're lucky. I hope other directors and writers have this relationship, but I don't know. I think we're really lucky.
It's fun. Yeah, no, it's been awesome.
It, right? It's, yeah, I mean, and you're not going to know what it's like inside other things, but it comes across pretty clearly to me that you guys have excellent creative chemistry. I mean, and I do not know you all that well. It just comes across. So,
and respect and love, you know, I think something people might forget about is you're married to that person. You don't have to be. You can say F you to your writer and they're not a part of it anymore, and you take the product they gave you and you can go. But that's just not how it worked for me and Kevin, and that's not how it should. I mean, I don't want to say should. I want everyone do your own thing.
I agree. I mean, filmmaking is very much working with a family. You know?
And you're married to them for 4 years. So when you're getting in bed with someone in that capacity, it's not, you know, can I handle them for this long? It's, am I going to want to be in an Airbnb with this person? Am I going to want to travel with this person? Is this poor person going to be in the living room when I come out without a top on, thinking they've gone to bed? And I'm like, well, you're living with that image. I'm really sorry. You know, like crying on each other's shoulder, being there to support each other. That's, to me, what especially indie film is, right? It's a process, and and I think that's something maybe people aren't taught too, is, you know, when you've got the producers, the directors, the writers, those are people you're with for, you know. Puppet Killer is not out yet. Well, we wrote it in Kevin, pardon me, wrote it in 2015. So just to be clear.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was
takes that long, but
it was a pretty quick turnaround, because I remember I think I wrote the script in like 3 months, something like that, and then you guys went to camera in December.
Yeah, I think we had it pretty close to a shooting script by September.
Yeah, I mean, the wheels were already in motion. We just read it, you know, the script was, you know, that was sort of, everything else was sort of moving forward with the casting and locations and all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, no, it was amazing. It was quite the experience, you know. But, you know, I'm thrilled. I mean, you know, you put in all this work, it's a roll of the dice when you make an indie film, and you don't know, you know, once you finish it, you're like, okay, you know, your fingers crossed, let's send it out to festivals and hope for the best, you know. And we were lucky, you know, amazing the response we got, you know, when we, you know, we started losing track of how many festivals were playing it at one point.
Yeah, well, speaking of all of that, let's take a minute. Lisa or Kevin, whoever, please, like, tell me the awards you've racked up.
Oh, Lisa.
For a second, yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
it's crazy. And that's the only thing I can say. And I love how many people reach out to me, and I imagine it happens to Kevin too. How did you do it? Or even just asking. I had a person who I love wrote me the other day, and they said, what was your acceptance rejection ratio on Film Freeway? And I said, no, not on Puppet Killer. It's not fair to mark yourself to that one. It's not normal. I'll tell you about the time I made a film and it didn't get accepted to one festival. Like, let's talk about that, you know, because that's more real. But Puppet Killer, I mean, I don't know if you can see it. Can you see all of those?
Oh, yeah.
Awards. I had to look at it the other day for an interview. And as of right now, I mean, we're done, right? We got 4 months on the festival circuit, and I will always be grateful, but I know that this is going to sound horrible to your viewers. There's a very weird part of me that's like, but what if we'd have got more than 4 months? In 4 months, we got 79 nominations and 29 or 39 wins, something.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah. That was crazy.
It was crazy. And I never once wasn't blown away, and never once not grateful. No,
I think people really responded to sort of the heart in this film. I mean, for me as a writer and a horror movie fan, I mean, you know, the character of Jamie, he's just like, he's such a fan of horror films, right? And he's got this little puppet that he used to watch horror movies with as a kid. So for me, it was really about the whole idea of like, Lisa and I love like all the fans. I mean, I love horror. I mean, I don't care. It's just like, I just love it. So for me, it was just this opportunity to kind of like, have this character where, he was sort of struggling with the idea of having to let his horror friend go, which is his fandom, like once I'm always going to be a fan. My people, you say, when are you going to grow up, Kev? I'm like, never.
I think
so it was really about like, the character Jamie dealing with, sort of being, an adult or whatever, and letting go of all that fandom stuff. And, it's such a part of us that I don't think you can ever really let it go. So I think it really spoke to the fans of the genre as well. That the love of the genre. So
I agree. And I think we hit magic, and I don't think we'll ever be able to recreate what that special thing was. And I think one of the reasons we can is because we didn't make it for anyone but ourselves.
Yeah.
We didn't go in thinking this is going to be an award-winning film. And I kept telling people, like, we got a 90% failure here, guys, rate. Like, this is kind of crazy. We did it for us. And what blows my mind is we've got best of fests at like non-genre film festivals. Like that's where I knew something was happening.
Yeah.
When we started not just getting accepted into non-genre film festivals, but like winning
comedy festivals we were accepted
and just
into.
Being like, what the heck? And so I think maybe where the success came from is exactly what Kevin said. Pretty nostalgic old school horror fans, they get rewarded. They see the Easter eggs. People that just love horror, great. You don't have to get the Easter eggs to enjoy it. Comedy, that's my jam. Yes, I love horror. I've been training in comedy my whole life. I was able to bring that skill and get some serious laugh out loud moments in that. And I think there's somehow enough that almost everyone, for some reason, just got something out of it and was like, I don't know. But at the same time, I still don't know. It was a fucking
our youngest fan is 7 years old.
I love Sloan. Showed out to you,
right?
Buds. Yeah, and he's got beautiful, Simon art that he sends us, and somehow it spoke to. I don't know. I mean, you saw it. Maybe you can help us. I don't know. It's adorable.
Oh, so it's It's just because you honestly did it for yourselves that it has the heart that it does. I mean, there's no superficiality about it at all. It is easy to tell that you love what you do, and you love the horror and comedy and horror comedies that have come before, and that it is an homage, not a full-on spoof or anything like that. And no, it's hard comes across. It's just a person watching it, but also a person who gets what you guys are about to.
And I do want to say, trust me, there's people that don't get it, and I always knew that, and I set people up for it, especially my actors. They made risks. Every single human who showed up in this film made a risk, and their careers are bigger than mine, and that was a gift for them to even show up, and that was something I had to get everyone ready for. Was, not everyone's going to like it. And when they don't like it, they're not going to like it. They do not get it. We have some awesome reviews that are like, this is the worst thing ever made. I'm like, that is fair, man. That is so okay for that to be what you think.
One of my favorite, reviews are when Savage Island came out. Well, when Savage Island came out, my first indie film, and it did well. We spent $35,000 on it. It took us a few years to make. We sent it to festivals. We got into festivals across Europe and US. We went on to win 7 awards. But where was I going with
You were going with the worst review. I thought you were going to say
thank you.
One of your
brain fart. Anyway, so I remember thinking, okay, my first movie came out. I was a little anxious. I knew that, we worked hard on it and all that stuff. And then I remember reading a review online, and someone said, I'd rather poke myself in the eye with a pencil than watch this piece of shit again. And I thought, wow, okay.
That's
fair enough.
And that's okay.
When and how does Puppet Killer come out?
What a great question. I don't know. You know what? And in no way to say woe is us. COVID really affected us, and that's okay. It affected a lot of people.
Oh yeah.
So originally, there was some pretty cool things coming out for us, and theaters went away, and so that's been a harder thing for the people that are partnered with us to really commit to. I'm hoping now that there's vaccinations in the States and theaters are starting to open up, that maybe that's an opportunity again. Maybe we missed that window and we're going to go more on demand or VOD. But no matter what, I do believe that we will be out this summer.
Okay.
All things hoping. That would be wonderful. I love that people are waiting for us. And you know what? We're not great at social media. I don't say that about Kevin. I mean, those of us that run the film stuff, we're not great, but we're trying. And if you do follow our socials, we'll be just excited as anyone else. We will scream from the rooftops when we finally know when and how that we can get it to the world, for sure.
Okay, cool.
But it is coming.
Yeah.
Yes,
It
is coming.
Social media info in the blog and stuff, so people can follow you if they're not already doing it. And will it come out on for old school people like me who like real books and real DVDs and Blu-rays and stuff? Will it eventually make it out to that too?
I will be very upset if it doesn't.
I know, right?
I would imagine it will.
I've sold the film, so what people forget is that I'm not in control anymore. I'm not in charge. I did my best all by my lonesome, while sometimes just crying on Kevin's shoulder going, I don't know what I'm doing, selling a flipping film on my own. But I'm really happy with the people we sold to. And that seems to be part of the dialogue right now, is that, I think anyone isn't doing it right if you don't sell physical media to horror fans. We all love it. We've all got, like, right over here is my DVD and VHS collection, right? Like, we love the physical copy. Yeah. So I would be really sad.
I'm fingers crossed that we might get a limited theatrical. We'll see.
I already lost a big theatrical release with this film, and I'm good, but I'm not attaching my soul to anything, because I'm just right? But that would be wonderful. I would love that.
You never know.
Yeah.
But it is coming out, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So you've answered this a fair bit already, but I'm going to go ahead and ask both of you again. Why is horror and horror comedy? Why is it you? Why is it your genre? Why?
I think I might have been the first one to chuck Kevin in that world, if I'm correct. But I think mine, I'm obsessed with horror. I love comedy. I'm good at comedy. And I don't say that to brag. There's things I'm not good at. I know what my strengths are. I've taught it for years. I've been trained in it for years. I love it. I don't think when a horror comedy is good, it's good. It serves everyone. And there are some great ones out there, but there's not a lot.
No.
And I don't think I consciously chose to go in that direction. I just think it makes sense that when I finally got to create something that was me, that's what came out of me. And my need for it to be a real horror. Like you said, there's a word you used and I can't remember what it was, but there's a word that I don't like when people reference our film, and it's more that it's satirical, or that's not the part. It's spoof. Yes, I don't like that word, because that's not, like I said, it's a scary movie versus Scream. To me, it still needed to be all the real things that make it amazing, and I just love comedy. Kevin, how did you love, because you did such a great job.
I love horror too, and I also love comedy. A lot of horror writers, we have a really twisted sense of humor. I love really just crazy stuff. I love outrageous humor. I love comedies. So when I wrote the first draft, or the first draft of the script, I approached it from just a very standard slasher film. I wrote it as if it was like a scary killer coming after these kids, or, like that. So, it was a very standard slasher film. And then we started to, it was ridiculous, from the get-go. It was a pink puppet. So it had inherently a funny concept already. So it was just sort of like, once I did the Past, which was more of a serious take on the horror slasher, then we started to layer in all the comedy and stuff like that. Screenwriting is all about layering, right? You get your first draft and you start layering all the other stuff on, in it, and you thread it all together. Lisa and I, when we get together, we laugh a lot, man. We just we just laugh and we just come up with some funny shit. I remember the first scene I saw in my head when she started talking about Puppet Killer was when Simon's wearing the sheet. So that to me was hilarious. I think horror and comedy blends very well if you can actually do it, you know, right. I mean, there's been a lot of, you know, several horror comedies, like, you know, one of my favorites probably is What We Do in the Shadows. You know, I love that one. You know, Shaun of the Dead, you know, I mean, that's a, you know, even Evil Dead Part 2, I think is hysterical, right?
It is, yeah.
One of my faves. They were my inspiration.
You know, so I mean, I laugh at Human Centipede Part 2. That movie cracks me up.
Oh.
I you know what? Haven't watched, don't want to watch, won't watch. Don't judge anyone who has watched, but I got my boundaries in that one. I was like, no, I'm good.
Anyway, so yeah, so you know, I love comedy and I love horror. So you know, it's in that you can. I love horror comedy. It can be a real great fit if done right.
If done right, yeah.
If done right.